Welcome to the Mystery Box Podcast, where every episode is its own mystery. It could be a boat.
A boat's a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat. You know how much we've wanted one of those?
Then let's just...
We'll take the box.
A box of chocolates.
Life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
Or anything else for that matter.
What's in the box?
So let us open this box up and see what's inside. And welcome to this episode of the Mystery Box Podcast. I'm here with a backbone of not only WASU, but AppTv, Rob Gelber. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing all right, Daniel. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. So let's start off with a little history of yourself, Rob. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? All that.
Yeah, sure. I am from the Northeast. Most people can realize that I don't have a Southern accent at all.
Really?
I grew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and I was born in Queens, New York, but my childhood was spent in Pennsylvania. And from there, I went to school at SUNY Purchase, a school that has no athletic team. Its school colors are heliotrope and puce.
What are those?
I think it's like a blue and a brown.
I had like a maroon in my head.
Yeah, it's. I think that's what those colors are. They're both ugly colors.
I've never heard of those.
It was just a very progressive school when it came out, and the first president was asking somebody else, what do I do for my school colors? And they said, oh, any two colors, just not heliotrope and puce, and that's what he chose. So
let's do the one thing you shouldn't do.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, why not?
So what sparked your interest in technology to the point in which it led you down the path to where you are now?
That makes me think back to when I was younger. This is weird. I didn't get it from any of my parents. My parents wanted me to play music, and I did play music for a while. But when I was younger, I just wanted to get, for example, all of the TVs in the house to be able to get channels. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have. I don't think we had cable at the time. So we had this little, basically a cable splitter that was in the house. But it was not like a cable splitter that you're used to where you screw in the coax. We had flat wire from antennas.
Oh, wow.
And I learned how the signal got through there and how I could distribute it around the house. And it worked. And I thought it was really cool. And things just evolved from there. Then I wanted to tie TVs to stereos and get the audio out from there. So we could watch a sporting event and have it come out the stereo. And I knew a lot less about engineering back then than I do now. So I just wanted to make it louder. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just add more speakers. That's going to make it louder. No, it doesn't.
Such an 80s attitude.
Yeah.
Make it louder.
Yeah, it was looking like one of those like one of those early scenes from Back to the Future, where you have that gigantic stack and everything, but I just didn't have like the amplification to go with it. So it looked cool, but it sounded awful. But that's what school was for, and that's what I ended up learning more about engineering. But
so they're not gremlins in the back of those big TVs just running things.
No, there's not. It's typically a hamster or a gerbil or some other small fuzzy rodent style.
So you just have to replace the water bottle every once in a while, and it just keeps it going.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, whenever your TV doesn't do what you want it to do, just give it more water.
Oh, okay. So it's like an AC unit. If you don't have the right stuff, just put some water in it. It'll work.
Exactly.
So what about you upstate? Was it just the pretty looking mountains and the nice sunset?
You know what? My wife and I were both working over at High Point University together. I had never been to the South prior to, I don't know, we've been here for about a decade, so I'm going back a little bit. But I met my wife in New York, and she said she was going to come back down to Winston-Salem. She went to School of the Arts. And
Wake Forest?
No, UNCSA.
Okay.
So she went to School of the Arts, and she said she wanted to come back down to Winston. And I said, okay, I guess I'll come along if you don't mind. And she said, and
no,
she was
all
right.
Stay.
Yeah. And she was all right with it. I didn't have too many attachments, so no mortgages, no lease, nothing. I was really unattached
really
in New
nice.
York. Well, it was nice. It was hard, but the nice part was that I had that freedom to go from one place to another. And so I was young and able to, and that's what I did. I came down to Winston. We had lived here for a while, and so she had started the dance program over at High Point University, and I was working there as a video producer. So I was making promotional videos for them. She wanted to move on and decided that App State was a great school for this. It was a good program, and she got her position here, and we thought that we were going to be living this on the road kind of a life a little bit, but there was an engineering position that opened up, and I applied for it and we got lucky. So we're one of the very few lucky couples that got to be hired essentially around the same time. That's not always the case out here, but we got lucky.
Now she's still here. Like, what does she teach? Like, what's her department?
She teaches dance. So she's in theater and dance. We're in the same college, so it gets kind of funny when we have like college-wide meetings that my wife and I are sitting there together, and we're listening to the dean or seeing what's going on in the program. The nice part is it just automatically brings in collaborative efforts just because of who she knows and who I know, and that we want to do some projects together. It's a lot easier to do that as opposed to trying to break the ice with somebody who's, I don't know, not your spouse. So, yeah, you know what I mean?
Must make the decisions are easier to make when it comes to college stuff.
Yeah, I would say basically the rapport is already there. You have contacts that you didn't necessarily have to make yourself, and she has contacts here that she didn't necessarily have to make herself. And we're ripe for collaboration because we're in a communication department, and so ideas and content and performance and all those things that we want to be able to highlight that we can do in this college, we have the ability to do. So I'm all about that. Whereas, say for example, in theater and dance, they'll put on a live show, but maybe they're not necessarily going after, say, audio recording, or they're not going after doing a multicam video shoot. Right? That's not necessarily what they're there for, but they have great content that they're creating, right? And we have the ability to to take that content and produce it in a way that we can distribute it out and show people what we're capable of doing, not only here at the Department of Communication, but throughout the college.
So she creates it, and then you shoot it and edit it, and it's a perfect workflow.
We do that some weekends just to do like 1-minute experiments, just to come up with stuff. I'm not going to be the one in front of the camera dancing, and she's not really going to be the one behind the camera editing that often. But we partner up very well like that. So
yeah, don't you have, what was it, like a little sock puppet or something that you did? I remember seeing some stuff last year.
Oh man, yes. We one of our early projects came out of a day that she was bored, and she took basically a nice terry cloth sock that I got her a pair of socks. It wasn't just one, right? And she turned it into a sock puppet, and it was named Schmandy. And yes, it was named Schmandy Sock. Schmandy Sock did not speak, but did have a whole bunch of cue cards that would just bring up on camera, and it would have some adventures. Schmandy Sock has had to run from the law. Schmandy Sock has set up a home theater. Schmandy Sock has gotten a job. Schmandy Sock has gone to New York City. There are a few also fought off a zombie apocalypse and celebrated a New Year's, and a couple of cute little episodes.
So Schmandy has a little boyfriend?
No, Schmandy has a twin sister. Surprise, Kara, my wife, has a twin sister as well. All right, and so it was just a silly thing to do. It was fun to do. Her hand is Schmandy. She's had other actors in there, and those are her family members. So her sister, her parents have also been sock puppet family members. I think one was called Sherman with a SCH.
They're all S's?
Yeah. And Schmindy, and I forget who else, but like those were that was the sock puppet.
So anytime you add a new character, it has to be a family member from one side now.
No, not necessarily. We did have an emo sock. It was like, it had put some sort of YouTube up and said it was part of the 47% or something like that. It was just like super emo. So I think that was maybe the only sock that was not part of Schmandy's family, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Please tell me this is on YouTube.
It is.
Oh,
it is.
We got to get a list of that. So let's talk about AppTv.
Sure.
So what is it? How did it come about? What's your involvement, etc.?
So before I got here, I guess we had a channel that was called AppTv 21 or AppCable 21, or it was on channel 21. I'm not really that familiar with how AppCable 21 worked. I didn't really have that much of a part in it. Actually, I didn't have any part in it.
It's not all your brainchild?
No, not at all. Not at all. But But we had moved from Way Hall into this wonderful building, the Beasley Broadcast building, and along with it, we wanted to make sure that we had a TV station that was able to represent what we're capable of doing over here. Now it's hard to start a TV station from the ground up, and when I got here, it was just the color bars that were feeding onto Charter. So the first task was, how do we get this thing on the air? And that was a matter of saying, well, what do we have to put on the air, and how are we going to get it there? As far as the engineering was concerned, we had to find ways to send the signal over fiber to Charter. That happened. We had to have some content that came up. If anybody is familiar with AppTv, they know in the past it has been it was a wonderful place to see NASA and Classic Art Showcase. We still show those programs, and it's because we don't have, say, the budget to just go buy a program and play it. Like, say, for example, VH1 was a big, they basically own The Wedding Singer because they would always play it all the time. They knew their ratings were very good with the Wedding Singer, so they played it, ad nauseum. We don't have like funds to just go ahead and put up whatever programming, so we're either going to create it ourselves or we're going to take some programming that is free to rebroadcast. The three that come to mind immediately are Classic Art Showcase, NASA TV, and Democracy Now. So Democracy Now we started showing recently, and to be honest, I'm a big fan of it. It's current news and relevant news, and you won't see things about like any sort of celebrity breakups. You're not going to see stuff about
Brangelina?
Yeah, you're not going to see stuff about cute puppies or anything like that. You're going to see just straight journalistic news, and I do appreciate that a lot. And I think it's actually good to show that in this building as well. The debates were on. They were able to carry the debates, which meant that we were able to carry the debates, which I thought was super important. And that's the kind of content that I think we want to be able to show on the channel, along with the programming that we create on our own. I know this is kind of a longer answer, but that's just stuff that we bring in from the outside. UNC TV has given us some series that we can bring in from the outside. But along with those things to help fill out our schedule, because aside from, if we don't have that, we have either nothing on the screen or we have color bars, right? None of those are things that we want to have. We want to have anything but that, right? So the other way that we can do things is that we will have either produced materials that people might have done in the field and edited and brought back. However, that takes a very long time to create stuff like that. To create a half hour of a documentary style show takes a lot of time and effort and a lot of shooting locations, and that's very difficult to create when you have 24 hours to fill every day. Right. So another thing that we do, and a lot of TV stations do, is that we have a studio and we do studio shows. Right now they are ranging anywhere from App State Athletics. So we have a show called Sports Bar, and there are other shows called Religion and Life. That's always a good one. It's philosophical questions about how religion and life plays in society.
I've worked some of those. Those are actually really interesting.
They're super interesting shows. The host, Ozzy Oswald, is great. He knows how to really carry the conversation.
He's very enthused about it as well.
He is, and you might think at first you're like, oh, am I going to church or anything like that? No, you're not. I mean, he has a very really good down to earth way of taking the religious aspects of a conversation and putting it into context of
it's more
modern living.
It's really a history lesson.
Yep.
You think of it as a religious show, but it's more of like a history show, just the religious aspects.
Yep. And we talked the other day about how the evangelical vote is being affected with the current presidential race. And so there's a lot of interesting stuff that comes out of Religion and Life. We have the Academics, which is more of a current events show. So whatever's big in the news, that would be our version of what we're doing. And what it allows us to do is, if there's something that happens in North Carolina, it allows us to have a panel show about what's going on in North Carolina. But it also tends to go towards what's happening politically in the country.
That's the one hosted by a couple of the professors, correct?
Yep, correct. So Dr. Paul Gates is currently the host for the Academics, and let's see, we have a few others. The ones that I'm really proud of are the ones where we have heavy student involvement in the production of those shows. Sports Bar right now is doing really well. Producer for that show, her name is Carlin Brock, and we have included field pieces. We have a fantasy football league. We highlight a show that's created by by Kelsey Sharkey, who's the director of video operations over in athletics. She creates a show half-hour show each week, and she has to pull all-nighters each week to go ahead and make this thing happen. But that one's called Rise. That we put a teaser for Rise within Sports Bar as well. And we really push the students to create stuff that will make their show unique and to get the feel of what it takes to be a producer, not just to be in crew, because being in crew, you could be behind the camera, you can be running prompter, you can be the technical director, right? But a producer has to prep that show and spend a lot of time preparing that show so that it can work a certain way. If you say, it'd be really cool to do, it'd be really cool to do that. Well, if you're the producer of that show, it's your job to then take that idea and turn it into the reality of what's going to happen in this production. And that takes a tremendous amount of preparation time. And if we do field pieces, that means what are we going to do this week for the field piece before we even do the show? Like, what are we going to shoot and edit down to 3 to 5 minutes for this show? And I really like that we're able to start taking these outside elements and not just have it be a conversation in a studio, but to be something that's incorporating more of what's happening around campus. And the best way to do that is take cameras outside of the building, capture that content, bring that content in, and maybe you're not editing 30 minutes, but maybe you're editing 5.
Yeah.
Right. And you can do that once a week. Okay, great. So that's the kind of stuff that I like. And we have some other shows that are going to start just working on, say, green screen. Right. There's tons of preparation. You won't be able to put anything behind them unless you have a graphic for that. Right. So that's really where I like to see the creativity of the students go, and it's going to help them for working in TV in the future.
Has there been any thought of maybe adding student-made commercials, maybe to go between some of these shows?
Yeah. So our designation with charter, and I have to start with this so that there's an understanding about
Get the legalese out.
Yeah, exactly. There is a legal reason why we aren't running a commercial. Just like the radio station doesn't run commercials, it runs underwriting. The channel itself is, as far as in charter's eyes, is a PEG channel, and that stands for Public Educational Government. And the rules for PEG channels is that you cannot make money off of spots. So that kind of puts us in a bind as far as saying we want to do this thing to build revenue. We have, however, recently launched on SkyBest, and that's on channel 20 and 1020 on SkyBest. And obviously we're online because we want to make sure that people that aren't in this area or in this county are able to see our programming. Say, for example, you have parents in Raleigh?
The Raleigh area.
Yeah. So if you wanted to show them a show, how else do you show it to them? You can't tell them to turn to a channel. They got Time Warner Cable out there, right? So if they can't get that programming out there, the only other way to get it is through the internet. And I'm very cognizant of that. That was one of the first thoughts I had in my mind was, okay, that's great that we're going to have this programming out in the local area. And it would be nice that we're reaching this many counties, right? But ultimately, if we're not reaching all the locations where either students' families can see it or their potential employers could see it, then I think we're doing a bit of a disservice to the students. So that's why being able to be online and getting that programming out there is super important for students' future prospects.
So starting last semester or spring of 2016, you finally became a teacher. You're not just an engineer.
Yeah.
So now that you're not just an engineer, have you thought or how have things changed when it comes to your day-to-day duties?
So, I taught my first class last semester. And
it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and the mindset of the class was that athletics and AppTv, especially since AppTv was new and we were having this issue that we didn't have anything that was. We realized that we needed people that could run the TV station. We're talking about folks that can schedule shows, that can bring in shows from outside, like from UNC TV, that can take care of all of the behind the scenes operations that make the channel run 24/7. It wasn't that way originally, but once we started building a schedule, it became a little bit more complex. And I'm always very fond of whoever is running, whoever is the traffic manager for the station, because without them, things don't get on the air.
Yeah.
And they're all troopers, and I really appreciate them. But at the same time, I can't get all of those folks to do double duty, run the station, and then also produce all the shows.
Yeah.
And run the production spots for all the shows. And likewise, athletics was having a very similar issue, is that, you could have people that are staffed there to help everything that's going on behind the scenes as far as like, how do we, get these files here and there, and how do we prep a show? But when it came down to like, let's broadcast a football broadcast, or in our case, let's go ahead and record a show, you need a pretty sizable crew for that to happen. And honestly, it was David Jackson who came to us and said, hey, is there a way that we could create a class that we can find a way to get a crew for these things? And, that was the idea, and over time we figured it out, and then Com35 was born. And I'm really happy with what it's been able to do, because we went from not having anybody or just begging people to come in and produce it. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I get it, because without the incentive of saying, hey, we need to do, hey, you're either going to get paid for this, you're going to get credit for it, or whatever, right? Without that incentive, your priority goes to what am I going to get gas money for, and what am I going to get credit for? Is this going to help me graduate, right? And I'm very well aware of that, and so I know that the incentive needed to be there, and so did David Jackson. That the incentive needed to be there to get folks in there regularly working with the equipment, and so that's where Com3540 where it began. I'm a big fan of the class. I like seeing people start from the bottom and not know how to use a studio camera, or not know how to use a TriCast, or not know how to use a Mackie board, and we go over it in time. And in certain situations, it's trial by fire. I don't like it to be that situation all the time, because I'd rather teach you something before just throwing you into the mix. But sometimes it's the best way to learn too. Yeah. I'm a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of getting the students to develop that way, and I see it as a great way for them to have enough skills to get in pretty much any TV studio that they want to get into when they graduate, when they're filling out their resumes. I always have it on my mind. My main priority is that you leave that class being as employable as you can be in the industry that you want to be employed in, and hopefully that would be some sort of TV broadcast or related field. And I think that Com3540 helps along with that, as do many other classes in our program, as do audio and video and TV studio production. Right, TV studio production is more about how you create a show, right, versus just running gear. But they all have their own specialties that the students are going to be able to pull a lot of information from. Oh yeah.
So are you looking to expand upon your one class into a bigger teaching role, or do you prefer to just have the one class and kind of just balance being an engineer along with help run AppTv and just kind of teaching on the side?
Well, I consider that if we could make the days 36 hours. Right? I think I'm probably maxed out as far as I can go between the engineering responsibilities and production management responsibilities and the teaching. I love the teaching aspect of what I do, and I really love the problem solving aspects of what I do as far as the engineering is concerned. As I make jokes about gremlins and things like that floating around the building, and that's the easiest way to convey to folks that, like, hey, you have a gremlin in this system today and a gremlin in that system today, and we're working on flushing it out.
Well, they get into everything.
Right? Yeah, they do. They're all over the place, right? And I appreciate that, because it keeps the job from being boring, but at the same time,
God forbid.
Yeah. But the one thing that I really do appreciate is seeing students develop. I recently had, I'm not going to mention who it was, but I recently had a reminder that somebody was reaching out to me and they wanted to do something with the TV station. And I remember that they did this a year ago, and it felt like an eternity. And one of the things I thought of immediately, I was like, you know what? This person was on that shoot and they didn't know a thing. They were just like brand new. I didn't even know them that well, and they just didn't know the gear. They didn't know anything that was going on. And here they are a year later, and they have developed into somebody that I respect and that I trust, and completely transformed from the person that I had seen them before. And that's what I really appreciate. There's not many situations, there's not many places where you get to see that over such a short amount of time, how quickly somebody is able to develop.
So in the next 5 years, where do you see the station heading? Like, what will it become? What kind of shows do you think will be running? Or even with technology, with its rapid changing, how do you think that's going to affect how the station's going to be ran?
I think our biggest bugaboo on the station is probably that we have to combat the having one location for most of our shows, for all of our shows, really, right? For all the original shows that we produce. I think in the future, we're going to have a means to either find a clever way to do multiple sets, or we're going to be able to produce shows that happen outside of the studio. And we're already kind of doing that. We're not doing it in a 30-minute format, but we're doing it in like our little theater and dance today promos that we do. So you'll see those in between programs are about 2 minutes each, somewhere in there. And those things are 3-camera shoots that are done at Valborg right now, but it's not to say we couldn't do those 3-camera shoots elsewhere, right? And I see that in the future, we're probably going to be developing more programming that comes from outside the studio, or if we do have some stuff in the studio, maybe we figure out a very clever way to do some multiple set looks so that every show is going to have a very unique identity. Given we're up here in the mountains, it's very hard to come upon space, right? And we're extremely limited by space in the studio as far as it's concerned. But I think that we're probably going to figure out some really clever ways to get programming that doesn't have to share that one set that we have. I think there's going to be a way that we're going to be able to figure that out.
So if anyone's interested in AppTv or to the class you're teaching, how would they go about joining or getting information about?
Oh yeah, email me. My phone blows up all the time. I'm sure I'll see your email somewhere in there. So the two main portions of it, and if you have enough time before you graduate, I would suggest starting with Com 3540 and just getting used to being in TV productions. Com 3540, when we start registering, I think that's in November.
Something like that.
I'll put
late October, early November. Yeah.
I'll do what I can to start recruiting folks at that point. But that's a class where you meet for about an hour on Mondays, and the rest of your time is devoted to practicum time, doing crew for AppTv, doing crew for athletics broadcast. So if, for example, you're interested when you're at a football game and you like seeing what's up on the video board, well, that's Com 3540. That class produced what's on that screen, and it is a different production altogether from, say, what ESPN was putting out there. You also get to work. You also get the opportunity to work on an ESPN production if you wanted to. So
signing day.
What's that?
I remember we
signing day.
Signing day.
There's a media day. There's also I think we're doing some volleyball that's going to be on ESPN. And that's great for a resume. And not only is it great for a resume, it's just exciting altogether to be involved in something like that. And that's a way that you can get into it. It has to be done in a team format. So it's hard to just walk up to athletics or just walk up to AppTv and say, well, I just want to help out on camera for this one production today, right? I appreciate folks like that, I do, but I would probably find some other thing for them to do, because Com 3540 is where we get a crew and we assign a crew all these different positions. So if you're interested in working behind the camera and hitting the camera switcher, or working audio, just being in a live environment, that would be the class for you. AppTv, like I said, if you have enough time between now and the time that you graduate, if you do Com 3540 and you like it and you are interested in producing your own show, that would be the ideal pathway to take the 3540 and then move on to AppTv and say maybe you want to do traffic and schedule what's up on the station. Maybe you want to bring in programming from outside. Maybe you want to produce your own show. Maybe you want to do field pieces, all those different types of things. If you want to be talent or if you want to be a producer, AppTv is willing to have you. And it makes life easier if you've already had TV production experience, but we will take anybody that is interested.
Like I said, I took the class last semester, and it's definitely, if that's what you're interested in, it's a worthwhile investment. It truly is.
Appreciate it.
So to end this on a lighter note, you said you're from Philadelphia, so you're obviously a Steelers fan, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. I could not say I was. I'm a pretty diehard Eagles fan, as you can imagine. The interesting part about this is that even though my team was pretty awful, I would still be a proud Eagles fan, no matter what. We had a really rough past couple of years, and with a new coach and a new quarterback,
it's looking pretty good.
Man, we're 3-0. I'm feeling really good about that. For those that are football fans and knew that we had Sam Bradford before, and he went off to the Vikings, did not expect this to happen. It probably happened a week before all that drama happened, but I got tickets to be able to see the Vikings play Philadelphia. not knowing at all what current drama is going to unfold. And then hearing that Sam Bradford left to Minnesota and that Carson Wentz was going to start over Chase Daniel, to me was like, oh, this is exciting, right? It went from okay, I'm going to see an Eagles game to like, wow, I'm going to see a really fun Eagles game, and especially now seeing how well our quarterback is doing, and to be honest, how well Sam Bradford's doing over in Minnesota as well. This should be it should be a really fun time when I go take the trip up to Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
So, yes.
Are you gonna go to Pennsylvania on that Windswagon?
Yeah, maybe so. Man, you know what? I'm pretty sure that license plate is available in North Carolina. I might just get the personalized license plate that says Wentzwagon. Yeah.
Bumper sticker says "Hop on board." And
yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, thank you for coming, Rob. I highly appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Daniel. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we will be right back on the Mystery Box Podcast. Welcome back to the Mystery Box Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know in the comments below on this video. I sound like a YouTuber, don't I? And if there's something you want to see or hear in future episodes, leave a comment for that too. I'm open and willing to hear all suggestions, and any ideas would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, guys, thanks for listening.